Good evening. Good evening. What's going on, fam? Welcome y'all to the first episode of No Clue, where when you think you got life figured out, you realize you have no clue. I'm one of your four hosts. I am Dr. Robert Crawford. No Clue was a vision that came from me and my best friend having conversations, and I said it's time for us to have a place where we talk about real things that's happening and not sugarcoat it, not cover it up or put a band-aid on a broken leg. It's time for us to face these things head on and just figure out what we're going to do to make it better, right? And so from there, she was like, well, we got to have some people to join us. We got to have some smart people. We got to have some people down for the fight. You know what I'm saying? People who don't mind getting some good trouble, as my frat brother would say. And so I called on my friend DJ, and DJ was like, oh, I'm down. No problem. I called on my girl Arteria, and she was like, you ain't said nothing but a word. I called on my best friend, my ride or die of 25 years. And Mo was like, so when we doing this? When we getting this party started? And since then, it has been a brainstorm of great minds coming together to make this happen. So I'm me. I'm Dr. Robert. A little bit about me. I have my doctorate in ministry. I've been in ministry since 2002. I'm a hard worker. I'm an actor. I'm a published author. Y'all go buy my book. I love life. I live my life to the fullest. You live every day, you die once. So I take each day for what it is, and I'm grateful for it. I'm going to introduce my other panelists, Miss Arteria Ferguson. She's not with us today. We miss you, Arteria. She's doing the Lord's work tonight. She will be with us on next week. A little about her. She's an Atlanta, Georgia native. Come on for the A-Town represent. She's a mother of 3 beautiful kids. I'm a little partial. Those are my babies. She's a minister as well. She's been licensed since 2020, and she currently serves as a mentor for the Slave program. You guys will meet Arteria next week. I'm telling you, she will change your life. All right. DJ Mo, tell us about you. Who are you? Come on, talk to us.
Well, what's up, world? I'm DJ. My name is Dewan. I do go by DJ. I'm also a licensed minister. Been licensed since 2020. I am the program director, the Ryan White Care Coordination Manager at the AIDS Foundation Chicago. I'm the only person on this live representing the Midwest, so check us out, keep us posted, know that it's here. But just a little bit about me. I am a licensed minister. My favorite historical figure is Dr. Fred Hampton, so I'm all about the cause. I'm down for whatsoever. And I'm just here to have a good time.
That's what's up.
Good evening, world. This is Mo Smith. I'm also a licensed minister. As well, I was born in Chicago, raised in Atlanta. So there's a little taste of Midwest on the team. So let's not forget that. Also, my moniker I go by is that, well, I shouldn't say moniker, but what I go by is I'm too liberal for the conservatives and I'm too conservative for the liberals. So what you see is what you get. I go by wisdom and truth.
Okay. I was just thinking to myself that could preach. Too liberal for the conservatives, but too conservative for the liberals. That could preach. I'm sorry. So we have a lot of Holy Ghost people on this team. All right, now we ain't gonna be doing no shouting. It don't take much to get the spirit moving.
It might now. You never know. You never know how God.
Listen, if it happens, it happens. We here to speak the truth. This is all about being truth. It's about being transparent. And the irony is, we didn't even plan for everybody on here to be in ministry.
Right?
It just happened that way. So it's divinely led for that to happen. So we're not going to deny it. We're not going to deny it.
Exactly, because in life there's no There, I can't even get it out. Never mind. Go ahead.
Because we thought
No
we had it
coincidence.
figured out. Mm-hmm.
And we
There's
have
no
no
coincidence.
clue.
And we had no
Mm-hmm.
clue. Come on, you
None.
see how that
Hey.
worked together. Oh my
Yes.
goodness. So guys, every week we coming to y'all and we're gonna have a different topic. Some things gonna be serious. It's gonna be cutting to the jugular. And some days we're gonna laugh and joke. But in life, I'm a firm believer when life hands you lemons, you make some lemon pepper wings, some lemon meringue pie, some lemonade. You don't just make no lemon, and then you add a little something to your lemonade. It's prayer. Yeah, prayer to the lemonade.
A special anointing for that lemonade. Yes.
Yeah.
That
So
part.
Oh.
you gotta laugh your way through it. Because my grandmother raised me that if you harp on the bad in life, that it holds you down. You know what I mean? If something bad happens, acknowledge it, and then build from it, learn from it, and move on. So we're
Exactly.
gonna get into our first segment of the show. It's called "Say What."
Say what?
And so
There it is.
uh, so for Say What, we're just gonna talk about whatever is on one of our hosts' mind. And today I got the pleasure to launch Say What. And I want to talk about my boy Lil Nas X. I want to talk about Lil Nas X because your boy came out last year, 2 years ago during Pride Month. Oh, happy Pride Month, everybody in the LGBTQIA plus community. Happy Pride
Yes.
Month. He came out, and since he came out, like he has really been, in my opinion, calling out what we've been beat with. Like his recent video, Montero. I personally loved it because when you come out the closet, they tell you're innocent. You everybody's angel when you're born, and that's mommy's angel, that's granny's angel. But then you come out and it's like, oh, you going to hell. You ain't nothing. You ain't gonna be nothing, and you on this slow fall to hell. But he's like, when I came out, when I was born, I was y'all's friend. Everybody loved me. All of a sudden, I say I'm gay. Now you hate me, and you're sending me on this slow fall to hell. But while I'm going to hell, I'm going in style. Like I'm not just going to wallow in my misery. If I'm going to fall, I'm going to fall. I'm going to do it in glam style. And then when I get to hell, I'm going to take over. Because if you be honest about you, anytime the same gender loving community moves in, neighborhood property values go up. We turn neighborhoods around. I mean, let's be real. Midtown Atlanta, it's like the gay capital of the world to me. Property values, a 1-bedroom apartment, $2 million. I'm just a bit. Come on, people. Everywhere we go, it's just like, and so I applaud him for what he's doing. At the EBT Award show. I'm sorry, BT. My bad. Oops.
You hungry? You hungry, Dr. Crawford?
He kissed his background dancer, and everybody's like, "Oh, what am I supposed to tell my kids? A man kissing a man?" I'm sorry. How many women have full-fledged made out on TV and y'all supported it?
Okay. So with that being said, the thing about it is that it's a little disingenuous because there were complaints going back to when Madonna did with Britney Spears on the MTV Awards like 15
Ugh.
years ago. Yeah, so there are complaints. It does happen. The issue is that it's okay to sexualize black bodies until those black bodies are empowered by that sexuality. That's where the problem comes in. So and on top of that, it's still rooted within white supremacy. Whether you're talking about men or women kissing on stage, each other on stage, it's only a slight level of less controversial when two women do it, due to the fact that yeah, we know that guys like to see, well, straight men have a propensity to like to see that on TV, but they're still being critiqued and criticized because of that. So I don't want
But
to take away from that.
it's more
You're right. It's not
accepted
as
though.
bad. It's not as bad, but it's only slightly.
But I mean, so I take offense that you said straight men like to see women kiss on TV. Hi, I thoroughly enjoy seeing women kiss. I mean, it's beautiful if it's done right.
Okay. Okay. What I'm saying is that within mainstream America, straight men like to see that type of goings on. As
But so
however,
you trying to say, what am I going to tell my kids? So how do you justify to your kids that you got 14 brothers and sisters and by 13 different women?
I think a better analogy is that the weekend one a Kids Choice Award about a song about cocaine. Remember that song, I Can't Feel My Face, or what? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That song got a Kid Choice Award, and that song was about cocaine. So if you want to talk about, what about your kids? Let's keep it a whole hundred
Let's
and
keep it
keep it
Well,
real.
but
consistent.
let's also include, we can't forget the fact, right, that number one, this is on BET. So let's talk about the racial aspect of this whole thing, right? Because that's so important. We see this stuff on MTV, VH1, any other type of platform, and it's not as much of a controversy. But the fact that this is on BET, again, because of Black America and Black America's perception of what masculinity and femininity is or is not, is why we're having this conversation in the first place. Instead of us looking at things and understanding that things have transpired and gender and sexuality exist along a spectrum, not just at polar opposites, but that things are fluid. We can't have those conversations, but we see, even down to like fashion trends. Let's look at how skinny jeans was a thing, and it's like, oh, he has to be gay. He wears skinny jeans, but now it's okay because all of your favorite hardcore rappers, right, are rocking skinny jeans or not wearing their pants on their pants. So I mean, like, it all is contingent upon perception.
Well,
Right.
so real quick, shout out to Ricky Z Media because that's our production manager. She's doing her thing, and she just asked the question: is it really about the kids? Let's just be real about this. Is it really about the kids, or is it that we're addressing your inner homophobia? Is it that you internally you want to be the one kissing Lil Nas X, and now you mad because some other man doing it, and you gotta go kiss your wife? Because that's what I'm starting to really feel like it is. Because I'm looking at these older men, they're like, "Oh, skinny jeans, you must be gay." Are you just mad because you don't have the body? You got a BMW. Your body's made wrong, so you can't
Let's
wear it. Are you
and let's
hating?
not and let's not forget in the 70s and 80s, men used to wear their clothes very tight.
Who you? Let's talk
Correct.
about basketball back in
So
the day. You saw everything when they did when they
right.
shot.
So fashion is very I can't think of the word right now. I'm having brain fart. But the point of it is fashion moves and ebbs and flows and actually circles back around. Because
Yeah.
Hmm.
remember the whole phrase with the whole phase with the bell bottoms, fluid. Yeah, that's a good word. Thank you. But also you have to. It's basically you're absolutely right. It's just another means of perpetuating homophobia. They felt comfortable because that felt something stirred within them, and they didn't like the way they felt, so that's why they're speaking on it. And quiet as is kept, straight black men are oppressed, and it's a lot easier to find someone to punch down on. And historically, that has been um, gay people.
Oh, let's hold on to that when we get into the top, because that's a great segue into what we got going on for later on in the show.
I,
And I'm gonna need for
that's
you to
I
understand that, because
got you.
that part is key. But
Ah,
before we
That's what I'm
close
here
out,
for.
though, I do want to just be like, we talked about all of these other facets, but we didn't talk about the, like, no face knows value of it, right? Is that now you can't deny what's really happening in the world. And some people want to act like they exist in these bubbles and these silos where activities of the world don't exist, and they live in these quote unquote perfect worlds with, the mom and the dad and the white picket fence and the acre land or whatever. But that's not the reality of the world. That people are changing, the world is changing. And this is forcing people to acknowledge those things, and that, our personal levels of comfort and what we perceive to be normal, are really starting to be tested and brought to the forefront. And then that causes us to have to perpetuate in our own selves levels of vulnerability and insecurities that most people aren't willing to deal with.
now, see, you just open up a whole nother show. So we're gonna talk about these insecurities and because I believe that's something that needs to be addressed. Because I honestly believe that's what the root of the cause is. Because my daddy said if you kiss a man that that's wrong, this, that, and the third. But in today's society, well, let's take this back. In Western civilization, sex is not fluid. If you go
You better say
overseas,
that.
if you go to Europe, sex is fluid over there. So you kissing a man is like, okay, you kissed a man, congratulations. Want a cookie? But in America, it's like, oh no, we live in this Stepford society where, mommy cooks dinner every night and daddy goes to work and mommy comes home and helps little Billy with his
Very
homework.
nuclear
And
family.
that's not real. You know what I mean? Let's be real about this. And I believe that a lot of this is generation it's been pressed down, and it's kind of like a pimple. You know how a pimple you get so much pus? No, let's go. It's a volcano.
I was going to say, don't use that. That's a terrible analogy.
This is a volcano. As a matter of fact, I'm gonna do it like this. This is Yellowstone National Park. It's a super volcano, and it has reached its peak, and it's about to explode because people are. I think the world as we know it, what we see as normal, which normal to me is not. It has no definition. But what we have been told is normal is about to completely change. Because I remember in high school, you came out to the table, you was like, "Hey, I think I'm gay." He was like, "Oh, congratulations, you found yourself." Then I went to a more predominantly African American school, and it was like, "Oh my God, you got the Black Plague, you're gonna die," you know. And one
Not
thing
to
I really
mention,
hate, what you say
you're
now?
seeing. I said, not to mention, you're seeing older artists are coming out. That same show, Queen Latifah officially came out
And let's
because she
and
gave a
let's
shout
talk
out to
about
her
that
partner.
too, right? Let's talk about
Hmm.
that too, and why did they have to be repressed in who they are and being repressed in their own selves to sell, to be relevant, to make these things, right? That's a whole nother set of issues. And again, and like I said, it's about that internalization and acceptance of what it is versus how reality, right, perceives you.
I wholly agree with you, sir. I mean, you got the NFL player just came out, and the way he did it, it cracked me up. He said,
Yeah, but I have an issue with that too, and I have an
Because
issue
he's
with
a
a lot of those things. But
Yeah, because he's a log cabin Republican, so it's kind of that's kind of segue into a great
and
segue
then
into
even
intersectionality.
let's think about the other
"Uh
football player
oh,
who came out. I can't think of his name, but he came out.
Michael Sam.
There you go, with a white partner. And not that I have anything against interracial couples. I just want to put that out there because I know how y'all get on the internet. No, I don't have a problem with interracial
Sorry.
couples. However, if you're taking a stance that this is what it is and you're taking a stance, like I just feel, we again, and why is that okay? Because he had a white partner. If he had had a black partner, would it have been received the same way?
oh
Absolutely not.
hecky no."
Well, okay, so let's expound on that a little bit. From my understanding of the situation, it was his partner as well as activist groups such as HRC that pushed him to come out.
And again, that's my point though.
And
Even with
and unfortunately,
HRC, right? HRC is a predominantly Caucasian organization
absolutely,
that promotes predominantly Caucasian agendas and concerns and issues, right? Which is
exactly.
exactly my point, which is why coming out through that lens with that support is acceptable because you have that backing. Had that been
But
reversed, you wouldn't have gotten that same level of support, from
unfortunately,
NAACP, for example, or some other organizations that we know are historically built for people of color.
right. But unfortunately, within that, he was supported from them because they were able to get that notch on their belt. But unfortunately, the
Mhm.
NFL was not supportive at all.
Absolutely.
I mean,
And unfortunately, his career did not flourish once he got drafted into the NFL. And unfortunately, he got dropped. Well, I'm sorry. And also on top of that, he went to the Canadian Football League, and he also got dropped to CFL. And
Hmm.
also, his boyfriend broke up with him. Now, I'm not going to say that it was because of him not having that level of that status of being an NFL player, but on paper, you could easily find that correlation. Furthermore, I feel like if he had a, bl- a mate that was also African American, I seriously doubt that his partner would have had him come out due to the fact that being African American as well as gay, you are exposed to both sides of oppression. So
yep.
they
Hold
would have
that,
been
hold
more.
that,
They
hold
would.
that, hold that.
They
That's
would have been more
good.
cautious. They would have been more cautious too. Is what I'm gonna say. But yeah, I'm gonna hold my peace.
Well, I'm just gonna say this. If his heart is broken, I will give him a chest to lay on and cry his tears away. Call me. Ain't no what Caitlyn Jenner told Donald. Call me. Call
Well,
me. But no, I
yes,
agree with y'all.
he's a doctor and he's single and ready to mingle. Push through.
I just feel like y'all. I feel like it's a setup. Like
Yeah.
we can't win for losing because every step we take forward, we taking two steps back. You know what I mean? At some point, we're gonna have to realize. I hate to say it and use this little, but we're queer and we're here. I mean, we're not going anywhere. If you look at every major celebrity out there, they have a gay backing. You have a gay person doing your makeup, doing your hair. I hate to go there. If you go to any great church and if their choir is on point, they got a gay choir director.
Right, but of course, it's okay for your talent to be pimped in their minds. But once you show your full self, that's when the issues start. But we can go ahead and like move on to the main topic. Since we're like the main course is
Right,
here.
because
We're
we
talking
teetering. We
about it. We're
teetering.
already in it. So let's go ahead and transition into that main course because the appetizer is done basically.
All right, so for our main topic, DJ, take it away.
All right, so today's show is it's called Intersectionality. What the f? Right, and so we chose this topic because we wanted something bold, we wanted something fresh, we wanted something cutting edge, and we also wanted to use this time to close out Pride Month and not do something cliche. We didn't want to talk about coming out stories. We didn't want to take a typical approach about what is or what isn't. We didn't come in here in typical Pride attire. All of those choices were intentional. But with all of that being said, as we segue into intersectionality, we would be doing this topic a disservice if we did not talk about the historical context behind it to some degree. So the term was
Mm,
coined by Kimberle Crenshaw in 1989, who was a black feminist and legal scholar. So again, keep in mind that's important because it's a double marginalized community. We're going to keep that in mind as we talk about intersectionality. But ultimately, the whole premise behind this is that human lives can be explained by single categories, such as race, gender, sexual orientation, or identity. What we're talking about on this evening and what Kimberle Crenshaw talked about and has continued to expound upon in different areas of research is that we want to look at how all of those identities correlate and the oppression and power dynamics that intertwine between those things, right? So, as we talked about a lot of these examples, what does that mean being a person of color that's also queer, that's also a woman? What does that mean being a person of color that's queer, that's a gay man in the African American community? How do those identities intersect? What does that mean about for you being a father or a parent or a spouse? How do all of those things interact, and what does the world see and perceive on us when we do those things? Um, so, y'all, let's talk about it. I mean, we started teetering, we got in there a little bit. How y'all want to take this? Let's go.
I mean, frankly, from the beginning, the community, as far as political activism, it started from a place of queer POC, where it started with the Stonewall riots. That was majority queer, black, or BIPOC, or however you want to call
Hmm.
it. And after that riot, activism started to happen, and unfortunately, a lot of the Caucasian homosexuals decided to come in and take over the movement because they wanted their main agenda is to be in order to be equal to their heterosexual counterparts. Unfortunately, they felt, well, I shouldn't say they, all of them, but a lot of them felt, because I'm giving the timeline, that they are not prejudiced or racist in any way due to the fact of being oppressed as gay, being gay, identifying as gay, which is completely false. Everyone has their own prejudices. Even myself. You can be black and also prejudiced. You may not necessarily be racist, but that's a whole nother story. Um, and the issue is that you have black POC that is continuing to make these points, but unfortunately, it's being told to closed ears. So, but I'm gonna go ahead and let y'all talk. I just had to get that out real quick, just giving the historical context
So,
Yo,
behind it.
so I
shout
mean,
out to Ricky Z because I was just about to ask that question. Can you put the question back up for us, Ricky? Because it was, can you experience privilege?
well, so I was gonna jump.
Absolutely.
I was gonna jump in for a quick moment because Mo, you're educated. You have like 47 PhDs. DJ, you're like
I
the
can't
doctorate of
stand
life. But for like,
you.
let's say the normal person who is Billy Bob walking down the street saying intersectionality, well, what the is that?
And ultimately, like I said, to keep it simple, it's about how we navigate through life in multiple spaces with multiple identities and how they interact with each other, right?
Right.
And understanding that each of those identities creates and carries both a privilege as well as
As
oppression.
uh, so, I
And
feel
to break
like
it all the way down. Oh, I'm sorry. My
no.
bad.
Go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
Go
Well,
ahead,
to,
Mo.
to break it all the way down to the children out here that may not understood what he was saying. For example, if someone is black and also a woman, they have issues. Really? Wow. Great. I thank you for coming out, Robert. I appreciate that. I've known you for over 25 years, and that's the first time I've heard of this. Anyway, let's say, for example, you're a black woman. You have issues that of oppression due to you being black. You also have issues of oppression due to the fact that you are also a woman, because women they have certain issues of oppression due to the fact of them being a woman, regardless of whatever their color is. So
And then,
intersectionality is basically how that works together.
right, and
Right.
add
And
on to that, don't forget in the current climate, as a black woman, you also are afforded privilege, right? Because most of the people who make money are women of color. Most of the people who are in higher positions of senior management or senior ranking positions in some places, I'm not going to say all over the world, but if we see that are things, most of the graduates who graduate college at higher rates are women of color. So those things also carry a level of privilege while also simultaneously, sorry, carrying a level of oppression with both of those dual identities.
right, but even still with that example is kind of flawed, because the reason why black women are in more prominent positions is because their segment is the most educated, fastest growing entrepreneurials in this country,
Correct.
and also the most educated sector in this country. So
Mhm.
it came, yeah, that privilege didn't come just because of who they are. That's due to the fact of all the hard work that they did.
I was about to say
And
that
on
was
top of
because of
that,
their strength and their
right.
endurance. Because
And
Correct.
so that's why I was saying that that example may not be as accurate as far as the point of privilege. But if you talk about, for example, you have Caucasian gay men. Yes, they are oppressed due to the fact that
Absolutely.
they are gay. However, they still afford the certain privileges due to them being Caucasian in this society
And
I
male.
and
and I
male.
will be first to agree because and so when I told my grandmother I like men, she says, "Why would you add another strike against you? Because you're a black man, you already have a strike against you. Then you have the audacity to be an educated black man, and now you're a gay black man. You're a triple threat out the gate, and a lot of people are intimidated by you. So what privileges do we have as black men is my question.
Okay, so it's a question that came out to me, and I want to
Because
try to answer it once you're done. Go ahead,
I
Ron.
asked
Okay,
y'all a question.
okay, so
I
I'll
know
go
I
ahead
just
and
asked
I'll go
y'all a
ahead and say it.
question.
I'll go ahead and say it. With being because a lot of times I get misgendered as a man when I'm out in the world. When you are a
No.
man, you people listen to you more. And
Mm-hmm.
yes, you are oppressed due to being black. However, if you're in places where you're not being oppressed because of being black, and you're just in a place where you're just a male, you have those points
Hmm.
where you have privilege due to the fact that if you open your mouth, people listen automatically due to you being a man.
Okay, I'm gonna let DJ answer his question because this is a good question, and then I'm gonna come back to you, Mo.
Hmm.
Just pen
Go ahead.
park. That's in the parking lot. DJ, did
Wait,
you freeze?
no, I can hear you guys. Can you hear me?
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah,
we
we can
just
hear you.
can't see. There we go.
There we go.
And that's a great segue into the question. And the question says, would you say privilege is a spectrum also, which creates a sliding scale of access to these privileges? And again, I think that was a great example that lead into it that yes, there are different degrees of privilege. We all understand that. We do understand that privilege is both given and taken away simultaneously at the same time as well. And so I would say that I would agree with that. Maybe not 1,000%, but I absolutely would agree with that to some extent.
Well, I think so. I would say that there is a sliding scale, and I think one person who has learned that this scale exists is Caitlyn Jenner, because when you were a white male, that scale slid in your favor. Now that you've crossed over to the dark side, y'all see the quotations because I don't want y'all to think I'm calling transgenders the dark side, but that's what the heterosexual norm is. You know, when you cross over, that's the dark side. Now that you're on the other end of that spectrum, you're not getting the respect and the clout you got when you was the Olympic track star.
Mm, uh, while Caitlyn did lose her male privilege, she still has other privileges. Number one, being rich. Number two, being a white woman. There's still privileges within that.
But
So I
even
don't know
with
if
the
that's the
white
best.
women, a lot of white women don't classify her or see her as a white woman. So where you also have privilege, she's also being oppressed in that same token.
Due to her giving up her male privilege. I
No,
will
no,
say
I'm
that
saying
she
even
does.
with in the female sense, as a female, she's given white female privileges by some, and by others, she's oppressed by as being a white female.
Well, right. That's what I'm saying. Due
Okay.
to the being LGBT and as well as a woman, that those two things kind of come are together like this within one. However, she still has that privilege of being a white woman though, because she was one woman of the year in one of those magazines, correct?
Oh, well, yeah.
So, and also she's rich. So there are certain privileges that she has compared to her trans sisters, where their trans women of color are the top as far as LGBT violence, hate crimes. They're the top of the list. For a black or POC trans woman, the age life of Jesus, I can't get the term out. The point of it is the
30
average
to
lifespan
39.
is yes 35 to
Hmm.
39. So she's well into her 60s, so she's well past that, and as well as I really don't. She's protected because she's rich, so I doubt anybody's going to come up to her and try to do a hate crime against her, basically. So
I mean, just is you're not gonna go down that road. Ignore that.
mm.
Do not acknowledge what I just said. Okay.
No, I'm not acknowledging anything.
Okay.
Next,
Thank you.
next question. Next question.
Whew. Because what I said that was gonna open up a can of worms. I apologize. Something just totally happened where I just dropped out. My iPad decided to say, "Hey, I'm gonna
Listen,
restart."
that happened to me. That's
Hey,
why I had to go off camera for a minute and pull it together because it was just like it's a lot. But we here.
I guess Apple is saying
Intersectionality.
this Apple is hating on us. Apple, what the f? But no, I
We
agree with you
got your
guys.
back. We carried.
My concern
Oh,
is
you gonna start this right now?
what she say.
I said, it's all right. We got you. We carried it. That's what we do here.
That's
Aw,
exactly what we do.
this is
Hmm.
why I heart you guys.
But back to the
Hmm.
point, though, as we tie it in, let's talk about negotiating power. So we talked a lot about power dynamics.
Hmm.
We talked a lot about power differentials. We talked about access and power and privilege. Let's talk about negotiating power. What does that look like? How do we do that? Do we do that?
Unfortunately, until the majority of said privilege would actually be willing to acknowledge it, that's the biggest boundary to try to come together and redetermine those dynamics.
So that was gonna be my question. Are we in that era? Are we in a position where we're ready to accept and acknowledge that privilege exists?
Because the majority aren't willing to do that. I've been watching on TikTok. There's a creator called D. Eric Lewis. He basically made that comment when it came to as far as white gays, and a considerable number of white gays commented stating that doesn't exist, and that they don't have privilege because they're gay. And they're in fact oppressed, even though that within the original video that oppression was acknowledged, but there was no acknowledgement of their privilege due to them being Caucasian.
So let's
And
just be real, because when I look at, I don't want to talk from my walk. All right, I can't talk about DJ's walk or anybody else's walk. My walk as a same gender loving black man, and some of my friends who are Caucasian, and their walk is totally different. There's more support for them. There's more avenues where they can get enrichment. Whereas a lot of us, I should say, are cast out. Now, I'm not negating the fact that some of them are cast out as well, but predominantly in the African American household, we're not accepted.
yeah, but that also leads us to talk about an important facet that we kind of touching on, but we not really get into, and that's structures and systems, right? Because that's ultimately where all of this stuff stems from, and that's both structures and systems that are both physical and tangible, like schools, prisons, jails, governmental institutions, right? But also systems and structures like family units. What does that look like? How does that determine it? Social constructs that are created to determine and make us understand or force an understanding upon us of what those things are supposed to be. But if they have structures and systems in place that reinforce those thoughts or those projectors or all of those things, of course, then it makes sense why it would kind of be to us as people of color who don't have that same level of privilege or access a skewed worldview, right? Because it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
make sense to us. We look at things through a different lens, but we also have to acknowledge that perception is a reality. And like
Hmm.
we opened up and said that, right? So our perception of things is absolutely our reality, but theirs is their reality as well. And I think where we start to fall or fondle the ball is where we like one or the other, or in this case, the lack of existence that there are access to privilege, power, and structure.
So
Right.
go ahead, Mo.
I was also going to say that, also the LGBT community, we're not the only community that is going through that. If you look at what's currently going on with the third and fourth wave, well, some people go back and forth if there's an actual fourth wave of feminism or not, but they're
Mhm.
also having issues as far as dealing with uh, black women and also POC women getting the same level of acknowledgement from their Caucasian or white feminists when issues
Mhm.
that are happening within those said communities, BIPOC communities, and 9 times out of 10, white women are silent about it. Because they're in the level of privilege due to them being white. So it's unfortunately it boils down to white supremacy, and when you are in a place of privilege, unfortunately there's a lot of them that have the thought that if I believe this is happening, then that means that some of my privilege is going to be taken away, basically.
And it's funny that you
And
should bring that
acknowledging it,
up.
yeah. Hmm.
And it's funny you should bring that particular instance up because ultimately that's what Kimberly Crenshaw's premise is. And even in her book, which is Demarginalizing the Intersection of Race and Sex, a black feminist critique of anti-discrimination doctrine, feminist theory, and anti-racist politics. Those are exactly the examples that she uses
Hmm.
to bring up the term of intersectionality and make those both points of clarity, but also those points of distinction between both of those groups. And how, again, like I said, it's that dichotomy of both privilege and oppression that operate simultaneously.
Hmm.
Okay, so I have a question for y'all because I think we've mapped out. First of all, can you state that author's name again?
Kimberly Crenshaw. That's Kimberle.
Come on,
Put some
Miss
respect on her
Crenshaw.
Crenshaw.
name.
Miss Crenshaw, you've gotten several plugs on this cast. I said, contact us. We sponsor us here, please.
And
Amen.
she is still teaching. She is still passing theory. She's doing all of those things.
So
So,
we see the problem because with no clue, the point of this is we're going to acknowledge the problem and talk about what we steps we can start to take because it starts with one step, right? It takes somebody taking the
Hmm.
first step, and it takes us. What is the first step we think needs to take place for us to start to make change? And we can't say for them to acknowledge it because we can't change what somebody else's perception is, right?
Right.
Correction, we can't change someone else's perception. We can't force a change upon them. We can't make them admit to what they're not willing to admit to. So what can we do to start to institute a change for the next generation?
Well, I believe that we've already, as a community, started to do that. Like with, for example, a lot of cities in the South, when they have their Pride celebrations, there's also Black Pride to acknowledge that there are LGBTQIAA members that are African American, and we celebrate within that Pride for ourselves. Also, in larger cities like New York, I believe they have a Latino pride or a Puerto Rican pride, something along those lines. Don't
mhm.
quote me, but I believe it. If there was an old saying, I can't remember who stated it, but basically, if you don't have a seat at the table, you create your own table.
I'm a firm
Um,
believer of that. But
so
so
we're already doing that, and we're already stating that this is what's going on. So the ball is in their court if they want to acknowledge it or not, because Facts are facts. Shout out to Monique Hart.
Yes, Monique.
But my question is this, Mo, and I hear you with the prize, and I hear you that you're saying that's a step. But is Pride really doing anything but putting money into people's pocket? Because I
Yeah.
see, so hear me clearly. When we have Prides, because this year, ironically, I've been to 3. Did not know I was going to 3 Prides, but I went to 3. And at every Pride, I saw parties, and I saw it was a pool party, it was a
Um.
a club party. I couldn't think what it's called. With a DJ. What are we doing to build up the community? Because I see a lot of
How,
fun activities. I haven't seen.
however,
Go
however,
ahead.
we do. I'm sorry. However, that's the same thing that happens for regular Pride. There's plenty of parties that happens at regular Pride celebrations across this
Oh,
country.
I'm talking about both.
So.
I'm not just talking about Black Pride. I'm talking about both prides. Because to me, Pride has become a party instead of. Because remember, the first Pride was not a party. The first Pride was not a parade. It was a protest. And so for me,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like when we have Pride, we should be saying we're celebrating who we are, but we're also coming together to fight for the rights that we're being denied. We're fighting for equality. We're fighting to come against this oppression that we're facing. To me,
Right.
that's what our pride should be. It shouldn't be a let's wear short shorts and halter tops and pasties and
How,
walk down the street.
So now,
however, with every holiday though, I'm sorry to cut you out, DJ. Go ahead.
now I was just saying. So now, what you're talking about is CRT, critical race theory, right? Because now we touch it on a whole nother level where we're talking about the intersection between those things and how race intersects with those things with criminal justice systems, historical structures, and civil rights activism and scholarism, which also shout out to Kimberle Crenshaw is another one of her kudos. But now we're talking about critical race theory, and it's a whole big movement now trying to discredit critical race theory and why it's not
Is
pertinent
the
and
16th?
why it isn't there. So, there are lots of things that are going on with this particular topic, and we opening up a lot, and I appreciate that. But it sounds like we got a lot more to do with this. But
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm like about this because this is what we need to do. We have the onion, and we're starting to peel back the layers. I don't like onions. Let's do another fruit. What fruit can we peel back the layers on?
Isn't that a vegetable?
So we're not gonna get. You say tomato. I say death. You say potato. I say potato. Okay.
Okay,
You
well, while you're thinking about that analogy, also let's give a shout out as well as with the 1619 project, which they're also trying to dismantle as well. That talks about the history of Black people in this country prior to 1776, because we've been here.
Correct.
Unfortunately, a lot of us were enslaved, but we were here.
Well, and let's talk about that. Even that historical context is flawed, right? Because it doesn't account for people of color who were here originally that
right.
get clumped
Yes,
into what's
indigenous
considered
cultures,
an
right?
indigenous or Native American culture. So,
Mm-hmm.
It seems like intersectionality is a lot. So we taking off the I. So I guess we will have to come back and work on the E in this. Is
Oh,
it
oh
is that
my.
is
no,
that
I
something?
think we got the inner part. Like we understanding that these things have to interact in some way, shape, form, or fashion, which is
Mm-hmm.
ultimately the whole basis that we've been talking about for the duration of this conversation. But
Mm-hmm.
as we're talking about those interactions, other issues are arising. And that's essentially what we wanted to do tonight. That's exactly what
Mm-hmm.
we came to do. We came to address those things that everybody or some people or maybe nobody is thinking about but needed a voice
Yeah.
or a platform to be able to address it and voice it. That's why we're here. That's why we're doing this. And we look forward to hearing you guys interact with us. We look forward to seeing what you're saying. Shout out to you all for shooting us questions and interacting with us during this time. We
I,
greatly, greatly appreciate
I
it.
greatly appreciate it because I'm learning a
Mm-hmm.
lot. But
Right.
what I'm also starting to learn is I think we as so I asked Mo. Mo gave us her $2 on how we can start to change. DJ,
Well,
I'm
well, let
sorry,
me
Mo.
also add. I'm sorry. Let me also add to that
Okay, her
what
two
I love
fifty.
about, yeah, 250, yeah, 275 really. Also another great example of what's happening, because this is what I love Generation Z, because they just don't give a f at all. They're like, forget authority. If you're not authentic, you will be called to the carpet. Um,
Absolutely.
I A lot
Yes.
of them, I've noticed on TikTok, they're saying, okay, well, you don't want to teach critical race theory. That's fine. You can't stop us from teaching it on Facebook or on
Exactly.
TikTok. So they're doing videos, giving that training, that education, and even taking it to a physical domain or realm. You can start organizations yourself in order to acknowledge and give forms of activism for that intersectionality. I believe you have to sometimes you just have to be the change that you seek. So you're right, pride has become very commercial. It's been around for 50 years. And not to mention it was kind of taken over by various corporations that love to put sponsorship because that gives the look of, hey, we're down with you, even though these same corporations are also giving money to politicians that are putting laws into place that are hurting the same people that they're acknowledging, saying, hey, we see you, love is love. Case in point, Donald Trump got money from several organizations. The
Oh, I
voting
because
right, yeah, even with the state of Georgia putting that voting rights rule into place, we all know in the state of Georgia, especially if you've lived here for years, born people that are born and raised, that if the Georgia Chamber of Commerce,
mm-hmm.
if they don't like something, they're not going to allow it to go through. So
Mm-hmm.
clearly, they were okay with that voting bill going through because they thought it was just going to get pushed under the rug. They didn't expect people to say, "Oh, okay, Georgia's in the spotlight. Yeah, we're not going to go for this anymore. We're not." Because they thought that, oh,
Mhm.
black people were just going to get, they were going to get a hissy fit and then they were just going to work around it like they normally do. No, it got national attention. Corporations felt the burn, even though they really didn't do anything other than just make a statement saying, "Hey, we sorry, we didn't know." But I will give a shout out to the Major League Baseball because they actually moved the All Star game from Atlanta to Colorado because they didn't want to be on the wrong side of history because they saw what happened with the NFL. The NFL thought
Mhm.
that not by not backing Colin Kaepernick, they were going to save that 20% of season ticket holder sales. But now they figured out, oh, we messed up. We're sorry, Colin.
So one thing I do agree. I agree with you, Mo. I completely applaud the Major League Baseball for taking that stand because even though people tried to sue them and say, "Oh, we spent money on marketing," I didn't tell you spend money on that marketing. You did that. So hi, how you doing? So I do applaud
And they
Major
have the
League
right to move
Baseball.
it.
Exactly. I mean, anyway. But I agree with you, Mo.
Mm.
All right. Are you do? Is your 275 done?
Yeah, 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 yeah,
Are you sure? Okay, DJ,
yeah. Don't
you're up.
delay. Mm.
I guess you got $3. Go ahead.
No, I'm not gonna have that much. But I mean, I think it's ultimately, again, starting with platforms like this, and to Mo's point, creating platforms and spaces that exercise these things, right, and bringing it to the forefront and bringing it to attention. One person can reach the masses, and that's why it's so important when we have those conversations. And people are like, "But I'm only one person." No, it only takes one person to spark a change. Just like it only takes one ember to start a fire. It doesn't take much to be able to do that. So it starts with platforms like this and having conversations. The other part to that is ultimately, and it's a part that we don't necessarily talk about wholeheartedly, is addressing our health disparities as persons who are marginalized, right? Because if we're not present, we can't sit at the table. If we're not healthy enough to make those decisions, we won't be a part of the conversations because we're not there to have those things. And I believe that that's an intentional whole part platform of structures and systemic racism, but that's a whole nother conversation. But again, it starts there. The last part is really looking at ourselves through our lenses, right, and acknowledging who we are, and not just acknowledging that, but turning the mirror on ourselves and looking at our own internal homophobias, right? Are we as people of that identify across the LGBTQ plus spectrum, are we transphobic? Do we have issues with people who are non-binary or gender non-conforming? Do we have issues with people who don't fit into the box? We really have to start to look at ourselves and take on our own biases before we can really have this global movement about this is the front and this is who we are and this is where we are. I think we're doing a great job of challenging systems. I think we're doing a great job of making sure that we're visible and we're present. I do agree with the both of you. I think that we have lost a lot of the historical context behind a lot of these movements. Even thinking back to the HIV pandemic, epidemic, right? Only until recently with Pose has those histories ever really been to the forefront of an entire generation of people that now are just like, okay, well, I can take this pill and I could be all right. And that's great. We want to continue to have those things. We want people to continue to live long, healthy lives. But we can't forget the atrocities of the 80s and early 90s. We can't forget the millions of lives that were lost. But we don't have those conversations. We don't have those conversations anymore. Why? Because it makes us uncomfortable. And it makes us have to acknowledge a part of ourselves and structures that aren't for us and that don't support us.
Right. But I also put the added caveat that it was giving visibility for Black gay men that was
Oh,
happening too,
yeah,
because a lot of those shows that came out in the 90s and the 2000s,
we're not for us.
Angels, and they were mainly Caucasian gay, which
Absolutely.
doesn't take away from the disparities that happened, but it was even at an additional level due to them being Black.
Absolutely.
So that acknowledgement, so definitely shout out to Pose. I
And
hate that they had
shout
that
out
last
to
season.
Pose for bringing our trans community to a light in a positive way, in a positive manner, that they were stronger, they were independent, they were doing things, they had families, showing all of these things that we have been fighting for to show that we as a community are deserving of, despite
And
the
not
atrocities, despite the barriers, despite the obstacles.
Not to mention also full-fledged characters. They weren't just a caricature that happens a lot of times within,
Hmm.
especially in our communities.
Yeah, no
So
doubt.
yes, yes, Dr. Roberts,
Cause you know,
the doctor is
I,
in.
I was gonna jump in behind DJ, but then Mo was like, "No, my $2.75 is not going to $4. Sorry." So
You better know me now.
this is why I love you guys.
Love you
I
too.
agree with you both. I think so. My stance was the first step we need to do is look in the mirror, because I think we're not being honest with ourselves on a lot of situations. We're not being truthful to who we are, to what we are, to our own flaws, to our own idiosyncrasies that we don't want to recognize. Once we acknowledge who we are and we accept who we are, and I'm not saying that your flaws are bad, because I personally believe everybody's flaw is a good quality of them, because your flaw can help me shine in my strengths, and together we're unstoppable. Okay, once we figured us out, then we have to have an open space where it's okay to put it out there. It's okay to say, "Hi, my name is Robert, and I see a therapist." And it's not one of those, "Oh, you crazy." No, my therapist is damn near my best friend, because therapy helps you resolve a lot of internal issues, because a lot of people don't realize some of our issues are deeply rooted from other things. You're trying to figure out why your relationship won't last. It's not because the last person did you wrong. You need to go back about 10, 15 years to a situation that you thought you was over, that you're still holding on to. My therapist has made me pull back some things. I was like, "Negro, I haven't thought about that in, huh." And he's like, "Well, now you see why, because that has trickled down in your subconscious to present day, causing you a crutch." You know what I mean?
That will
That.
preach.
Secondly, we have to come together and stop saying who's going to be in charge. One thing I love about this podcast is it's four of us on this cast, and no one person makes the decisions, because I think we have too many people saying, "Well, I want to be the person in charge. I want to be the head. I want to make all the decisions." This isn't a one person decision, because it takes a community to come together. Because if we don't come together, united we stand, divided we fall. All right. So in slavery times, they separated us amongst ourselves. That's what we get these, "Oh, you high yellow, you red, you a field nigga, you a house nigga." They separated us mentally so that they can keep us oppressed. We have to come out of that mentality and say, "You know what, DJ, you may be lighter than me, but guess what? At the end of the day, your blood is still red. Mo, you may be darker than me, but at the end of the day, your blood is still red." Because when we all die, let's be honest, they put us, all of us go in the same 8-foot casket, and we get put 6 feet under. You see what I'm saying? Our end result is all the same. We're going to die. Okay? So I think we have to get past this, "Oh, who's going to be the big person, whose name's going to be on everything," and just say, we need to make this move. Generation Z, one thing I love about them, when they do marches and stuff, they just march. Like, they just get together and say, "Hey, we're gonna go march." It's not gonna be, "Hey, I gotta be in the front because I want my face in all the pictures." Or, you don't see them walking and they don't do it for, I hate to say this word, but for the clout. They're doing it for true change. Because my generation, what am I? Z X Y M Q.
Millennial.
Can we? No, I'm not a millennial. I'm the other
Yes,
Yes,
you
version
are.
of.
we are.
What's
Yes,
the
we
other
are.
letter?
You
We're
are.
millennials.
What they're called X, right?
That you're not an X.
Why?
We're millennials. We're on the older end of it, but we're
But
millennials.
They're also a subset called Zennials. Does that make you feel better?
a little bit better.
Oh, okay.
But for
All
us,
right.
we'll start a protest. God rest his soul, Trayvon Martin. We started a protest for Trayvon Martin, right? They gave us something. It was something. What happened? No, Zika came out, and we was distracted from Zika, and we just forgot about Trayvon. Michael Brown was killed, and what was it behind Zika? Ebola came out, and we completely forgot about Michael Brown. This generation, every time something has happened, they've given us candy. We're gonna change the name of Aunt Jemima. We're gonna change the name of Uncle Ben. And this generation has been like, okay, we appreciate that. However, that's not what we asked for. Our generation was more quick to just say, we'll accept whatever you throw at us. We have to stay focused on what our end goal is and what we want. We have to stay focused on what we said we wanted police reform. We're not stopping till we get police reform. Yeah,
Right.
you can give us changing names and taking down statues and all this other stuff. However, that's not what we asked for.
I'm gonna interject just a little bit because with that being stated, I don't want to say
Anybody
that we didn't
surprised?
ask.
Okay.
Hey, but this is why I'm here. It wasn't that we didn't ask for it. We asked for it amongst with a lot of things, and that was swept to the side. So when we started asking for meatier things, they were like, "Oh, okay. Well, how about this? That's cute."
So
But no, that's right now we need to focus on what the real matters at hand. For example, with Juneteenth was officially made a holiday with overwhelming support from both the Congress, both sections of Congress, going from the House of Representatives as well as the Senate. Unfortunately, we can't get the voting rights bill enacted, as well as the George Floyd Policing Act enacted. And what I love about this generation, they're not going for the okie doke. They're
I
not
so
just
agree.
saying that. Okay.
so back to that. It still goes back to the initial question I asked early in the conversation. What we're talking
Uh-huh.
about now is negotiating power,
Hmm.
right? We're talking about how do we work through those systems and structure it. So do we
I,
think that
I
we're
don't negotiate with
effectively
terrorists.
negotiating power?
Well, okay. So here's the thing. For example, I'm gonna try to tread lightly with this because I know that was a very it's a very sensitive issue. When in the Asian hate, with the AAPI, they
Hmm.
received their bill within 3 months. It got passed overwhelming
Correct.
support. My theory, this is my own personal theory, I feel that with that bill, that didn't affect the structure of white supremacy. So it was okay to like, okay, well, you guys have assimilated enough. So come on, we're not really for that. And if you also remember, a lot of conservative think tanks tried to place the blame of Asian hate on African Americans,
Okay. Yes.
uh, due, due to older statistics prior to the remarks that was made by our previous president that incited that Asian hate from all sections of our country. Now, with that being stated, what I like is that the generation that's coming up, the Gen Z, is they're acknowledging that okay, that's cute. However, we're not going to go away due to the fact that you're giving these piecemeals, because we see that you can do it if you really want to do it. It can be done. So we're not going to accept that you're just going to push us to the side because you feel like, well, you have nowhere to go. And so this is basically a wake up call. So I really hope that the Democratic Party is watching because if they keep going, they're going to lose the little power that they've received due to this last election because the pressure is going to be put on. So when you're talking about negotiating power, that's how the real wheels of change occurs. Is due to that pressure. If we maintain the pressure, it will happen. And PJ, I love you. I just can't see the comment because I'm on mobile, but um,
PJ
It's a
said that they got reparations for the WW2 camps.
that is true. And unfortunately, African Americans did not receive their descendants as well did not receive reparations for slavery. In fact, slave owners receive reparations, and that's a part. That's not only in our country; that also happened in Europe as well. Whereas, for example, with the UK, their descendants stopped receiving reparations as of 1997, and they abolished slavery in 1838.
Well, some cities here in America are giving reparations to their residents.
Exactly, and if we keep, and it's about keeping the pressure on. That is the
That's
only
what
way
I
because
think. That's the only way we're going to get
and
changed, because if we get lax in any way, shape, form, and or fashion, if we show them that we will take a seed and we want a tree, I think. And for me, I'm not doing this for me, because I honestly believe that when this change fully takes effect, I will be long gone. I'm thinking about this for my kids, because I mean, well, I can't say that, because I was told that we would not have a black president in my lifetime, and we not only had a black president, we also had a black first lady. So I mean, a black vice
vice
president.
president.
So,
and on top of that, marriage
and we also
equality.
had a
I didn't
Cheeto
think that.
president. So I never thought a clown would be. I didn't think a clown would ever be president, but hey, things happen. That was not nice, Robert.
Not at all,
Who
sir.
said
Not
I
at
was?
all.
I never thought I would see. I never thought I would see marriage equality in this country. I never thought I would see the state of Georgia go blue. Let's just be transparent about this.
Yeah, they've been blue since
But I just feel
1992.
like we have to stop thinking about self and start thinking about the future generations. We got to stop thinking about, how is this going to benefit me, and start thinking about how is this going to benefit our kids. Because I do believe that, when my grandmother, along with other elderly people, when they were out doing the civil rights marches and they was doing those things, I don't think they was doing it for themselves. I think they were doing it for their kids, because they said, I want my kids to have better than what I have. I want my kids' life to be better. I want my kids to have the right to vote. I want my kids to have the right to go to school. I want them to have the right to go to school, the option to go to school, to learn to read. I think that's what they were doing it for. And I think a lot of times we want something now. We want something for us now. If they say we're going to give reparations to starting in 21, 22, I'm okay with that, because I know my children will get reparations for what my grandmother endured. You see what I'm saying? Because a lot of times I question myself, if they were to give us reparations, what would we do with it? If they came and gave every African American 40 acres and a mule? Tell me this: what would you do with 40 acres and a mule? How many of them would not even pay the property taxes, and it's going to get taken back by the government next year? How many are going to run illegal things on it, and it's going to get taken by the government? How many
um,
people are?
Mm,
I'm
but
just
see,
being.
but
I don't think that's fair. I don't think that's a fair assessment. And I'm gonna tell you why I say that, right?
hmm
Because we go back to that whole conversation that we had earlier about structures and systems, right?
Mm-hmm.
And access granting privilege, and privilege granting access to power. Some people in some situations, even down to like Reconstruction, which is where it really starts, a lot of those things were structurally divided and created to keep people in oppressive systems without access to any of those things. So now, when you have generations and generations that have been perpetuating this same stereotype or the same narrative, that this is what you have and these are the things that you do, and that are not used to having things, right? And now all of a sudden they get things. Of course, a natural instinct is now I can do things that I've never been able to do before. The problem then is becomes when again we're not taught how to manage those things. So you're not taught the significance of credit, right? So you buy up things and you charge up things, and then when it's important to have to buy a home or to finance things, or even now for certain places, at least I know here in Chicago, your credit score has to be a certain score before you even consider to put in the application for properties. But we're not taught that, and it's not internalized in us to teach that to our ancestors or our descendants or even our communities, right? Because that wasn't a priority and it wasn't a property. But I'm saying all of that to say we can't look at those things through that lens of, a immediate negative effect. because so many people have been so disenfranchised and so disempowered for so long. I truly believe there will be something positive of that, because at the very least, what it would cause for some of those people to do is to finally have something that belongs to them.
So I hear you, and that is my heart's desire. That is my hope and dream. That's what I would like to see. However, comma space. Every time they have been giving out stimulus checks, um, tax refunds, what's the number one thing people have gone out and purchased?
Cars and television.
Every time I can tell you when money is about to come out because Walmart put out a whole line of televisions. You don't see televisions in the aisle at Walmart except for Christmas and when they're giving out money. And I'm thinking to myself, people use these funds and purchase stock, purchase real estate, purchase something that can build equity and
Right, but that goes
give
back
you.
to my initial point in the conversation. If you've never had a history in that, if no one has ever taught you the significance of that, why? How would you know to do that?
And that's why I said we got to take a picture. I covered the camera. Have a look in the mirror, because you know that's what the AKAs do. You have to have a look in the mirror and say, okay, I need to learn this. I applaud people on social media who's saying, hey, who can teach me how to invest in stocks? Yeah, you might not be investing $30,000-$40,000 like some, but you're investing $5-$6 in Robinhood. It's a start to you have. It's a start. Like you said, it
Correct,
takes a small
but
M. Go ahead.
right, but the start has to happen, which is ultimately my point. Somebody has to be the person to say, and what I appreciate is I'm seeing a lot of that now, where they're offering free wealth building classes. That's not where it was with back in the day. I don't know about y'all, but I
Mm-hmm.
remember when they used to trick you into paying money to go to the seminars, and your parents would
Right.
go to the things to try to figure out that they're gonna spend this
Mm-hmm.
money to do these things. No, now we're not seeing that. We're seeing more people and more African American people of wealthy caliber really do free things for community to teach things about the significance of credit and cleaning things up and doing that. But again, ultimately, my point though, until we have actually shown and taken steps to teach those people, we can't hold them accountable for something that they never knew or that they weren't aware of.
And not only that, adding to that, when I see that, I'm not even mad. I'm not even upset over it, due to the fact that African American, in particular, men and women, have a wealth disparity compared to their white counterparts. So they have a lot less disposable income that is coming in. So if they get a little extra money, of course they're going to use it on entertainment, because times out of ten, if especially if they're struggling, they don't have that privilege to have the access to those funds in order to have fun.
Okay, so I want to.
So
Oh,
so
crap.
so I mean,
Sorry.
so I get that. Yes, ultimately we need to, come together and, practice black capitalism in order to uplift everyone. But we have to remember that self-care is also important. So daggone, if you want to get a TV, honey, and you've been working 80 hours with between two different fast food restaurants, I'm not going to even be mad at you, boo boo. Now the next time that the money comes around, because we know that, money comes and goes, there's more than likely you're going to have an opportunity. I pray that you get that knowledge, which, as DJ was saying, that there's more access to free resources where you can use that money in order to come up. Because there's also, it happens within the community, but it doesn't happen like, say, on the stock market. You have some people
Hmm.
that are black entrepreneurs where they sell amongst each other in order to build that wealth, but they don't necessarily do it in the traditional sense. So that's why that's not talked about. We've always had the mobile shade tree mechanic. We've always had the one that does the cutting the hair, or
Yep.
doing hair or
And
nails.
shout out to
They,
my barber for doing a house
right.
call before the show.
Exactly. So our people, we when you're in that space of survival mode, it's hard to check out of that and switch into thriving mode.
So,
And let's not forget, I know that, look, I've known you for a long time, honey. We both have struggled coming up. However, for the both of us, especially you, because you the one really that is in a place of affluence, where and as well as knowledge, where you could easily, come into that place of prominence. So I understand that you have a little jealousy because folks got, extra $2.50. Well, remember, honey, they're not getting several $1,000s a month. You know what I'm saying? In order to
Okay,
thrive.
so
So
Right.
before I address you, PJ, I hear you. I get what you're saying. With people working 2 or 3 jobs, living month to month, paycheck to paycheck, it doesn't give them room to make those decisions nor grant them the time to seek that knowledge. So here's what I'm going to tell you. This is what my grandmother raised me. You make time for what you want to make time for. Now, you may not get the knowledge all at once. You may have to get you a book and read a chapter here, a chapter there, a chapter, and learn slowly over time. But I believe if you dedicate time to it, because I tell people all the time, when you want something, you go for it. If you want a girlfriend, boyfriend, you see somebody who's catching your eye and they want to woo you, you make time for them. The same way you make time for that person, make time for yourself and say, I'm going to invest in myself. Um, Back to you, Mo Smith. Yes, I grew up in the hood. I grew up in the hood. I grew up in the projects.
we both grew up in
However, I had a teacher, I'm sorry, she's now Dr. Latanya Brown, who was my 6th grade teacher, who told me you will not be a victim of your circumstance. And I said,
it.
I did not know what that meant. She came down on me so hard. My 6th grade year, she was my 6th grade English teacher. I'm sorry, literature teacher. That's when it went from English to literature. She was my
Yeah.
6th grade literature teacher, and she rolled me so hard. I swear to God, I thought this lady hated the air that I breathed because she stayed on me. But then she came to me and she says, I want you to enter this competition because you have the knowledge to do it and make it work. And I became a United States Youth Ambassador because of her. And through my trials and tribulations of life, I always remember what she said to me. She said, you will not be a victim of your circumstance because you have the right and you have the mind to change if you choose to change. You can easily say, because my mama was in the hood, my daddy was in the hood, and I grew up in the hood, I'm going to go back to the hood. But you also have the right to say, I'm going to go stay in Buckhead because you know what? That's where I want to be because that's where I belong. And if that's what you want, then you go for it and you fight for it tooth and nail. Because truth be told, every time I went to school, I didn't have a strong backing. I love my sister. My sister is my biggest cheerleader. She's like the whole Dallas Cowboy, Atlanta Falcon cheerleading team put together. But our parents were not supportive of me, y'all. I'm just being real. My dad knows as my father recently last year, he told me words I have waited my entire life to hear my dad say. He told me, I am proud of you, son. I'm proud to call you my son. After 37 years, I heard those words from my dad. Do you know what that means for a black man who is a black man who grew up in the hood, who did not have a male figure role model, then a black gay man who family turned their back on him, not my sister and my brother, they don't count, but my family basically walked out on me and I was on my own. You know what I mean? A black man who had to find his own way, who had to navigate the system, because when you're going to a black school, or correction, when you're not in a high instituted private school, they don't give you the knowledge and power of how to balance a checkbook, how to manage your credit, how when you go to college and you're walking onto campus, all these credit cards, companies are lined up and you got $5,000 worth of credit before you got to your dorm room door. You don't have that. You see what I'm saying? So yes, I may have a little affluency to myself. Yes, I made up a word. I can
Damn.
do that because I'm the color that can do that. But it was because I had that
Here we
one
go.
person who told me that I cannot sit in my mess and wallow. My grandmother said, you got 5 minutes when something happens. 5 minutes, and you give yourself, if it's you stump your toe, you got yourself 30 seconds. If somebody passed, you give yourself 5 minutes, and in that 5 minutes you yell, scream, cuss, fuss, and you get it out. After that time has ended, you move the F on, because guess what, life moves on. And that's
All
what
right.
I
So,
feel. I'm sorry, Kari, I'm
so
on my
I'm gonna let Mo
soapbox.
respond, and then I'm gonna wrap up with this last question because I'm looking at the time,
Okay.
and I'm loving this, but we got to stay on track. So go ahead, Mo.
Right. Okay. So here's the thing. You basically made my point. What did my Angelou say? When you know better, you do
Do
better.
better.
The majority of community
Come
don't
on,
know
Maya.
any better. They didn't have who you had to tell them that they were somebody. I had a teacher as well when I was in middle school. Shout out to Patricia Jordan. She was my 8th grade social studies / history teacher. She's the one that taught me that, hey, Abraham Lincoln did not free the slaves.
Thank you. I didn't want to say that when y'all talking about Juneteenth, but hey, I just said okay, I'm gonna let
So,
y'all have it.
that was the first woman that told me, and I was disgusted with the rest of my. I was like, these people lied to me all this time in school. She was like, yeah, baby, he didn't free the slave, and I was like, oh my God. So even
Yes,
now I
ma'am.
have to. So anytime I meet someone, hey, like if we get that conversation about history, baby, I'm on it because I am well versed and studied because of her. So, but because I had that I knew better, so I do better, and I each one teach one. So more of our community that knows the system needs to teach others in order for the collective to come together and thrive. Because a lot of us is still in that mode of survival mode, and they're also being taught by their parents because their parents taught them this that they ain't shit and they ain't gonna never be shit. So when they
Mm-hmm.
have that mindset coming out the rip, it's not fair to say, oh well, you're doing stuff you shouldn't be doing that. You should be investing that money. You shouldn't be using that on on purchases that doesn't matter. Okay, you need to come with them with that knowledge with love, because if you're not coming with love, they're not trying to hear it. And again, that's why I love these kids, especially to shout out to Gen Z, because they do not care what your title is. They don't care what level of authority that you feel that you have. If you're not coming from a place of authenticity, that they feel that you actually give a damn about them, they will let you know about yourself from A to Z. And even some of them, they do get a lot of out of pocket, but that's what happens with youth. Because I remember us
Mm-hmm.
being millennials. I'm on that borderline, unfortunately, because some people say that I'm a Gen Zer. Some people say, depending on what person in sociology, has the actual years for the generation. Some people say I'm a Gen Z. Some people say I'm a millennial. Whatever. I'm here. The point of it is that we that know better need to teach up and rear up these kids, because they have the hunger for this change. So we need to teach them and help them lead the way, as Whitney Houston stated.
So it needs to be each one teach one. When you know better, do the system.
What?
Because that's what we need to do the system. And by do the system, what I mean is we have to get into their system to change their system. You can't change is better. It's easier to change something from the inside than the outside. For me, if you
And
don't
no,
like
Unfortunately,
the
nobody is.
we've tried that, and unfortunately, what's happened is that once people got into the system changed them. So at this point, these kids are coming up saying, you know what, it's time to dismantle the system and
and
create
then
something
rebuild
new.
the system.
There
I'm
you
with
go.
you.
All right,
DJ, you don't
come
open the
on,
whole
DJ.
can of worms. Doggone it. And
This
I'm
is
gonna be
what
Go
we're
honest
ahead,
with.
supposed to do.
go ahead,
Because
wrap it up,
this is
D.
what we
Wrap it
came to
up,
do.
D.
This is what we came to
Are we
do.
going
So
to this?
we
Our final
getting there.
segment. Our final
Yes,
thoughts. Is
this
it
is the last. No, not yet. We got about 5 more minutes, which is why I want to
okay?
wrap this up before we can get into that part, right?
Okay.
So we talked about intersectionality. We talked about those things. We talked about a lot of those things. So my last question is: now that we know what we know, we talked about all these differentials, these dynamics, these disparities. Can intersectionality help to create a peaceful and justful and equitable world, or do y'all just think we just having this conversation
I want to.
haphazardly?
I want to make sure I heard this correctly. Do I believe that intersectionality can help to create a peaceful and all that other stuff world?
Yes, can be used as a mechanism, a venue, a vehicle to perpetuate just and equitable change.
Can I go first? Because I know mine's just gonna be 10 cents. I know Mo gonna give us another $50. She gonna raise the church building fund. Yes, in my opinion, yes, I believe it can. If we are willing to acknowledge the privilege, acknowledge the oppression, and come to terms of how we can level the playing field. If we are willing to have those hard conversations and willing to come to an understanding and compromise, because nobody's going to say, okay, we're going to give you everything you asked for, you're going to give us everything we asked for. If we can come to a compromise, I believe yes, it can. But it will also cause us to acknowledge the past. One, we have to acknowledge what we've done. We have to, and I'm saying we, because I'm not just going to say everything was our Caucasian oppressors. No, what we've done, because we've oppressed ourselves. So let's just put this out. Once we're willing to accept it and we're willing to have those hard conversations, then yes, I believe we can do it.
Go ahead, Mo. You ready? Let's go. Let's see what you got.
No, no, it's not going to change. Just by acknowledging, because this term that has been coined since 1989. However, we have the same issues that is happening today. So acknowledging the issue is not enough. The system it has to, at this point, like I said, I love the Gen Z kids. They're like, you know what? This has to be completely dismantled because we're not going to take it anymore. As D. Snyder used to say back in the
Say,
day.
baby.
Yeah. So we're not going, and it's being done in ways, people like to, criticize cancel culture, but these kids are acknowledging that, you know what, I don't, the little coins that I do have, what you're not going to do is disrespect me when I'm giving you my coin. So if you don't like me, or if you're not willing to accept all of me as a person, I can take my money elsewhere. And
So,
I can go
so
ahead.
I just wanted to clarify. He said, "Do I believe it can help?" I didn't say it will. It would be the end all be all, but the first step is to acknowledge it, and therefore we can then begin to make the change. I want to go on record and say I didn't say it was, but will it end it? No, I didn't say that. I said it will help to make the change, because to help, you have to acknowledge what the problem is. The first step in
Um,
AA is to do what?
Admit that you have a problem. We know. We
admit you have
got
a problem.
And
But
so the
but
first step in
but
solving this is we have to admit we have a problem.
unfortunately, admitting the problem, it has to come from the people that are having that issue, and they're not willing to admit that they have a problem as a collective.
And so
So
we
since
can't
that's not going to,
dismantle something
so
that they want to acknowledge is mantled.
uh can and will, and that's what these kids are doing. If you notice,
We shall see.
because yeah, we shall. So because I believe we can all agree that these issues are rooted in white supremacy, whether we're talking about misogyny or homophobia, transphobia, because those things are rooted from colonization. Because prior to colonization, most indigenous cultures, including Africa, were okay with homosexuality. You have in history that there were kings as well as queens that were ruling tribes that had homosexual relationships, and even polyamory relationships, and that was
Mhm.
okay. So, so
Oh my
basically,
God.
that
Are you saying?
since that yes, I'm saying it. Yes, there are several examples of that. So, so basically, what I'm saying is that since they're not willing to admit
Whew,
the
that's
problem,
blasphemy.
like Alcoholics Anonymous. Okay, well, since you don't want to admit the problem, well, what we're gonna do is we're gonna dismantle this thing. We're gonna, and we're gonna put it together to make a more perfect union, as the Constitution stated. Even though that was rooted within white supremacy as well. But we're about to take that apart, and we're about to build up a more perfect union.
All right, DJ, you're the last person, and we got our closing remarks because we don't start a whole nother show.
That's what we were supposed to do. That's exactly what we were supposed to do. But ultimately, I don't know. I'm on the fence. I see where you know the positive points of examining how our identities intersect and how they intersect within us and the outside can be there. I also see a lot of the negatives, which we were very clear and very adamant in pointing out and addressing, right? But ultimately, I think the fact that we're having this conversation, and shout out to PJ, you've been a avid supporter of this cast, and you've been giving great things. So shout out to you.
Hey,
Um,
PJ.
but you know, it's causing dialogue, which is what we have to do essentially. And I think if nothing else, using this venue, using this platform, and using this term and this concept to create dialogue is at best what we can do it at least at this stage, right? I agree with Mo. I'm looking at the changes that are happening incrementally and growing out substantially to affect massive systems. And it goes back to what I said even in the introduction that we can't even have this conversation without addressing structures and systems, i.e., racial structures and systems, which we're all constantly doing and acknowledging. So we're getting to that place. The dialogue is happening, and at least right now, as it stands, that's the best I can say. But I'm hopeful that platforms like this and other platforms that are honest and raw and edgy and current will continue to happen, to continue to expand these messages so that we can see that happen.
All right. 1 minute. Last thoughts, Mo. 1 minute.
Can I go last? Let me collect my thoughts.
DJ, final thoughts. 1 minute. Go.
Again, intersectionality is really much about, it's not just about single categories. It's not just about if I'm a man, as me being a same gender loving man, that me being a husband, a partner, whatever. It's all of these things on how they interact with me and how the world interacts with me and how do I experience power and privilege and how do I navigate through those things. So I urge all of you all to continue to examine these things, to continue to look at these things, identify our own biases. I'll look at mine. I encourage you to look at yours and really continue to look at this concept through a larger lens.
All right, Mo, you're up.
You just, I need another minute. Go ahead, man.
I can't with her. I feel like we need to have hard conversations. Let's have real conversations. Let's do it together. You're not in this by yourself. And I just want to invite you guys back next week, and we're going to do this again. And if you have ideas of conversations we need to have, put it in the comments. Put it on our Facebook page. Let us know, and we'll have these hard comments. PJ, I love you. Thank you for your support. Thank you for shouting out, saying this was an amazing first show. We hope every show goes better. Give us some ideas of what you want to talk about. Let's do it. Appreciate you. Much love.
Wow. Final thoughts. Intersectionality is a very important process in order to recognize that there is a segment of our ethnic groups as well as our communities that really don't believe in equality. They just believe in having the same level of privilege that our white counterparts do. So with that acknowledgement, that will help us as a collective in order to push forward. Shout out to Ricky Z. Make sure you check out Ricky C's social media. Tomorrow, with a Woe Melly Media, they have Talk It Out, which I'll also be a panelist on. So if you just can't get enough of me, hey, I will be on there as well, representing for No Clue Podcast. And also, if you have in your heart, make sure you check out my Cash App. No matter how small or how large your donation, it will go. Your love offering will go far. You know what I'm saying? So the people that are on the podcast that are listening to this that cannot see my beautiful face, my Cash App is $MOESMITH P as in Paul RO. And let the church say amen. Amen.
Amen.
Amen.
Mo said pennies make nickels, nickels make dimes, dimes make quarters, quarters make dollars.
Hey, glory. Hallelujah.
And on that note,
we will talk to you guys next week, same time, same channel. Be easy. And as RuPaul would say, love yourself. How the hell you gonna love somebody else you can't love yourself? Can I get an amen?
Amen.
when you get it right, yes.
Next week. We'll try again next week.
We'll try again next week.
Check us out next week.
All right, guys. Be good. Be safe. Talk to you guys next week.